The number 13 really originally was the representation of the divine feminine. And Steiner himself says that during these 13 days and nights, which is again where the practice of the 13 holy nights came from, is a Steiner inspired, anthroposophy inspired practice. He says during these 13 days and nights that for one whose spiritual eye is open, we are able to see what must come upon man, I think is the wording that he uses. But it's an experience in foretelling. And this descending, just as the seed descends into the depths of the earth in order to replenish and strengthen in order to sprout in the spring, so does the human soul descend into the spiritual depths in order to replenish and to receive strength for the coming challenges of the new year and the new cycle.
This is Spirit Gym. Today, Paul is talking with Lara J. Day. Lara is the author of the 13 Holy Nights Oracle Deck and a Neurogenic Qigong practitioner offering seasonal courses and individual sessions. Her unique and innovative healing method interweaves medical Qigong with tension and trauma-releasing tremor work. Thank you for listening to this podcast, which would not be possible without you, our subscribers, and also our premier sponsors, Organifi, Bioptimizers, Paleo Valley, and Wild Pastures. The sponsors' special offers and discounts are mentioned in this episode, or you can visit the show notes page at paulchek.com/podcast. The topic of today's conversation between Paul and Lara is the 13 Holy Nights, understanding seasonal energies.
All right, you guys, welcome back to Spirit Gym with Paul Chek and my guest, Lara J. Day, the creator of the 13 Holy Nights Oracle Deck. She kindly sent me her deck in the mail. When I got it, I thought, I don't remember ordering this. And there was a letter attached. And so I read the letter and I thought, oh, that's nice of her. And I looked through it, as I always do, and really was impressed. It was beautifully done. And she's talking about a theme that turns out to be something that I have to talk to people about all the time because of all the reasons you'll hear when we talk about it today. But mostly people keep burning themselves out, to put it short. Those of you that are Chek professionals, Chek Academy students, and regular podcast listeners will be aware I stress the importance of Dr. Quiet in the winter season. No winter equals endless summer. The other thing is Lara's deck includes specific animal, herb, and mineral gem spirits and how to get guidance from those beings. And I thought that's fantastic because I work in those realms and I know how very real they are. So as soon as I saw that, I went, well, this must be a pretty tapped in woman. I better track her down. And lo and behold, here she is. And we're going to dive deep into the wisdom she shares in her excellent 13 Holy Nights Oracle deck. And for those of you that are members, we're going to get into the actual history and truth of the story of Santa Claus in the second half of the podcast. So if you're not a podcast member, now's a good chance to go to paulchek.com. And for about the price of a cup and a half of Starbucks a month, you can get all this great extra information that I love to share with all of you. So Lara, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'm so glad that you tracked me down and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I think, like I said, it's a beautiful deck. I have it right here, very nicely published. The cards are beautiful. It's got a real high-end feel to it. Lara, to begin with, I love the listeners to get to know the guests. So maybe you can share your background, and I'd love to hear your spiritual, what I call living philosophy, because as soon as I looked at the deck, I already knew that you were what I would call a woman of the earth, grounded. And I sensed a lot of the divine feminine working through you. And when I met with you and when I'm sitting here with you right now, I feel that very strongly. You know, you're what I would call the kind of woman that most young people would want to get advice from because you have the look of a sage.
Thank you. Yeah, my story. Even as a child, I think I was always drawn to nature and spirit and all things magical and mystical. And
good.
I honestly really have no idea where that came from because I was born into a very standard middle class family with, really completely devoid of any religion or spiritual tradition at all. And yet, of course, here I am. So I was always drawn to spirit and started reading those kinds of books and things pretty early on in my life and found yoga fairly early on, started teaching at the ripe young age of, I think, 23 or so. Then in 2008, my daughter was born. And 3 months after she was born, I tripped into chronic illness.
Oh, wow.
So my story is very much the story of the wounded healer that so many of us share in this realm. And I found my Qigong teacher by recommendation, seeing her as a client. And I remember leaving her office after receiving a medical Qigong treatment, and thinking, wow, it feels like I have been breathing underwater for years. And I didn't know it, right? And that was just after one session and being energetically cleared and tuned up by her. And I remember I went to the grocery store just after receiving that first session. I had no idea what Qigong was, what all the fancy words were that she had thrown at me. I had no clue. I just knew that I felt different. And I went to the grocery store, and I remember even thinking it was the grocery store that I went to all the time. And I felt like I had a different perspective of the cash register, like I was actually physically, tangibly taller, like higher up, it was so profound and so fascinating and just so impactful that after that first session, I immediately signed up for her 4-year medical Qigong training.
Wow, cool.
So I dove right in. Of course, the story just begins there, because shortly after that, my daughter and I contracted Lyme disease on the East Coast.
Oh my goodness, that's a tough one.
It's a tough one. Hiking on the East Coast. She was still a toddler. I was already working with my health. And so the journey continued from there. We were 5 years undiagnosed. I can say from personal experience, at least for myself, there is no greater motivation to dive deep, to investigate and study every single healing modality, spiritual and self-help book, seminar, all the things that you can get your hands on than having a child that is suffering. I often say, my own suffering is sort of, meh, all right, fine, I can deal with this, I can work with this. But bearing witness to my child's suffering as a mother was unbearable for me. And so just a massive motivation to dive deep into everything that I possibly could. And I can, with so much genuine gratitude, say that we are both healed and well now today. And
awesome.
Yeah, awesome. And it is certainly a huge part of the reason that I am who I am today. So in retrospect, of course, we see always the jewels in the journey, though I never would have chosen it, nor would I choose it for anybody else. But such a rich journey, right?
Well, it produces authentic wisdom when you go through your own healing process and helping others, for sure. I've been through plenty of my own wounded healer journeys over the years, so I know how much they help me learn and ultimately share with other people.
Yeah.
Do you teach your own medical Qigong or Qigong classes now?
I do. I have 5 seasonal courses. I dove into teaching the Holy Nights practice, which is what we're mainly going to focus on today, which is a winter solstice practice. But then, of course, I realized that the Qigong philosophy aligned perfectly with thinking about how to honor and celebrate each solstice and equinox. And so I created 5 seasonal courses that are Qigong courses. And then I also do individual neurogenic Qigong sessions, which are a little different, where I'm bringing the tension and trauma releasing neurogenic tremor process and sort of combining that, interweaving that with the medical Qigong. So it's my own combination of modalities that I learned and that have helped me along the way and had the biggest impact. And that's the neurogenic Qigong.
While we're talking about it, since we're on the topic, why don't you tell people where they can find more information about you and what you offer, just so that it's not lost in the shuffle and they know where to go, because, I can tell you guys, I'm looking at Lara, and for a woman that's been through that, she's obviously quite vibrant. She's got a real beautiful energy to her. She looks like a very healthy, beautiful woman. She's not just talking sideways. She wears it, which is important to me.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah. So my website is larajday.com. It's Lara. Don't sneak a U in there. I know you were saying don't sneak a C into your last name. People do the same with my first. So it's larajday.com. LARAJDAY. larajday.com. There's information about my healing work, ways to reach me. And then also you can purchase the seasonal courses there, as well as the Oracle deck. So it's all there in one place.
And do you do any of these things live and in person?
The individual sessions I can do either live or remote. The seasonal courses are for the most part pre-recorded. Some of them include one live class or a question and answer session. I do lead a 13 Holy Nights course every year, and that is pre-recorded practices in addition to 6 live sessions.
Meetings.
Yeah, during the 13 Holy Nights. So.
And where do you live for people that might be able to come to you locally?
Yeah, I live in Atascadero on the central coast of California. So right by San Luis Obispo, about 2 hours north of Santa Barbara, just right in the middle between Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Okay, well, a good place to go if you want to go hang out in a nice region. Is that close to the ocean there?
It is. Atascadero is about, our house is about 20 minutes from Morro Bay. From
well, that's
the coast.
nice.
Yeah.
I have tremendous respect for Qigong. As I shared when we met to organize the podcast together, I did Qigong certification with a lady named Regina Gill, who at the time was 78, but I swear to God, she didn't look a day over than 50. And she was beautiful. She had perfect skin, not a wrinkle on her face. You would never guess she was past 75. I mean, and she was clear-headed and just an amazing human being. And my master Fong Ha, when I met him, he was 75 and he was built, strong, healthy guy, a master of Tai Chi and Qigong. And he used to come teach at my Chek Institute HLC 2 and 3 classes and put on these amazing demonstrations where he was also a dancer. So he would mix Tai Chi, Qigong, and dance. He would do these demonstrations that people were just speechless.
Wow.
To see this little man moving like a cat or a lion, and just mind-bogglingly great stuff. So it was always great to have people in my life like that. And so my point is, for some people, it's probably worth to come see you in person and be in your field. And
oh, absolutely. It's by far my first choice. If I can work with somebody in person, I prefer that.
Yes. Well, Lara, I find that people that are awake often after years of committed inner work or spiritual development are often called by their soul to address a challenge humanity is struggling to resolve. I'm wondering, why did you create the 13 Holy Nights Oracle deck? And what is the challenge it seeks to help humanity resolve within themselves as individuals and as a collective?
The 13 Holy Nights practice, first I want to say that my purpose is to share this practice, not so much the practice of tarot or the practice of drawing oracle cards. It just happens to be a really perfect container to share this winter solstice practice. But the 13 Holy Nights practice for me was the scratch to the itch, telling me that there must be something greater to the winter holiday season than shopping compulsively, overindulging in sugar and alcohol, so taxing the body, plastic, glitter and tinsel, LED lawn decorations, jam-packed December calendars, trash cans overflowing with, non-recyclable wrapping paper. Intuitively, I think so many of us know there's something more there, but we don't quite know how to honor it or how to put our finger on it or how to discover it. And so this practice for me returned the soul to the solstice and led me to discover what the true gift of the solstice season really is. And I truly believe that humanity is ready for this practice, is wanting something to replace the hyper commercialization of the holidays. And like I said, doesn't quite know how to create that container or how to create a practice or find a practice that fills that void.
Yeah, that's great. The Holy Nights practice reveals the true gift of the season of darkness, which is what you're really talking about. What is the true gift of the winter solstice season?
Yeah.
Obviously you're speaking at a much deeper level than just an issue of schedule or an issue of the buzz of the commercial aspects of Christmas, how it's been commercialized. So I'd like to hear, what is the deeper truth?
Well, if we just start by simply paying attention to what nature is doing all around us during the peak of winter, right? The trees have dropped their leaves. Many plants and grasses have receded back into the earth. The animals are slowing down, maybe hibernating. Everything appears to be conserving energy and sort of drawing energy inward, right?
Yes.
And then here we are at our most frantic, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. What the solstice season really offers, the true gift of the peak of darkness, is in fact the infinite, right? We are
beautiful.
We are soaking in the infinite field of possibility, what I sometimes call the fertile soil of the darkness or the womb of winter. It's the 0 point of the year. Or if you think about, I sometimes think about it like the new moon of the entire year. So if you think, a lot of people are starting to pay attention to the moon cycles and realizing that if you align sort of your inner journey with the new moon, and that being the most potent or powerful time to sort of think about the beginning of a new cycle, what you want to manifest, doing your journaling work there. This is just the longer arc of the solar cycle. If you think of in Qigong terms with the yin yang symbol, we're in the bulge of the black, the ripest point of the yin. So the true gift is that darkness. And then if you take a look back throughout human history, all the way back to prehistoric times, humans have been honoring and witnessing and celebrating this time as far back as we can peer into history. And we know this because of archaeological ruins all over the world. On every single continent, we find these ruins of sacred sites that were clearly designed with care and precision to capture that first light of the solstice sun. So we've made it through the darkest part of the year, and the sun then appears to pause or hang on the horizon. The solstice literally means sol, sun, sistere, to stand still. So, yeah. So throughout human history, I heard one author describe it as this shadowy, uncertain time when the return of the sun remained doubtful, right? And throughout history, humanity saw this as a time when the world, or the door rather, between our world and the world of spirit was ajar. Or another way to say that is that the veil is at its thinnest. But it's really the return or the rebirth of the light within the darkness that is available externally in our environment, and then also internally in our internal human psyche. So we're in that fertile void, and then we're witnessing the emergence of the light externally and internally, the divine creativity, right? This is the opportunity to create in the infinite field of darkness and the fertile soil of the darkness, to discover this spark, this divine spark being reborn externally on the horizon, and then also internally.
I think at that time of year too, that our own psychic energies are moving inward. Our bodies are products of nature. So every cycle in nature is active energetically within us, including phases of light, because we're so stimulated by light, not only through the eyes, but through the skin. Hi, everybody. I'm sure you've heard me bragging about Paleo Valley over the years of listening to my podcast, and there's a very good reason for that. Not only do I love the genius of Autumn Smith, a holistic nutritionist, but her products are phenomenally good. My kids love them, I love them, and we all use them every day. My students love them, my clients love them, and they are absolutely top notch. One of my kids' favorite snacks is Paleo Valley's bone broth in chocolate. They love to make their hot chocolate drink themselves simply by whisking up collagen-rich protein powder in a mug of hot water. And I'm happy to let them indulge, as I know it is packed full of great nutrition for them in the disguise of a sweet treat. Even us big kids love our sweet treats, and isn't it great when we can enjoy something that not only tastes great, but is truly great for us? Paleo Valley's 100% grass-fed bone broth protein is the only of its kind made from truly grass-fed cows raised on pesticide-free grass pastures. It's made from bones, not hides, slowly simmered to extract the proteins and nutrients. Gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and dairy-free. The chocolate mix includes organic coconut milk powder, organic cacao bean, organic monk fruit that makes a sweet, creamy, delicious drink that my kids, family, and friends just can't get enough of. You can also add to smoothies, use it in baking, or mix it with your coffee for a healthy mocha treat. Paleo Valley's bone broth protein is also available in vanilla and unflavored. To try Paleo Valley's excellent bone broth protein and save 15% on your purchase, go to paleovalley.com/lowercase chek 15. No promo is required. That's PALEO VALLEY.com/CHEK15 to get your 15% discount as a Living 4D listener. No promo code is required, and I promise you, not only will you love this stuff, your kids will love it. You can giggle and laugh because they think they're getting a sweet dessert right before bed, but they will love it and sleep great. And boy, do we parents love it when our kids sleep great. Enjoy Paleo Valley's amazing products. One of the things that I've seen over and over again, which I alluded to in the beginning of the podcast, is that people stay frenetically busy all the time, no matter what month it is, and they don't actually have an awareness that the leaves coming off the trees and the fact that as winter comes on, the tree sends its consciousness and its life force down into the root system, and it begins growing its root system and better anchoring itself so it can support the growth of the next spring and summer season. Yeah. And I think a lot of people suffer tremendously physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually because they don't have a practice of introspection. Really, when we introspect, our most natural thing to do is close our eyes and bring our consciousness inside, which is really like going into a solstice that we create inside of ourselves. I think that if more people, just like it's very helpful to eat foods that are grown in the season that you're in, because the energies of those foods are complementary to the needs of the body, I think being aware of what our psyche needs to nourish itself in each of the phases of the year is also very important, but hardly anybody ever really realizes that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's precisely what this practice offers, is just enough structure so that we can be guided into recognizing these patterns that, as you're saying, we are immersed in and we are a part of. And if we can ride the wave of these energies, of the energy of winter, spring, summer, fall, and be aware of them, it's incredibly empowering.
It's also not only empowering from the sense of the word empowerment, but I think it's revitalizing. I've worked with professional athletes my entire career, and one of the things that I've constantly had to remind people is you need to take some time off in the winter season, even if it's the winter of your sport. But so many athletes just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. For quite a long time, I was working with quite a number of professional tennis players. And what they would do is when the season would end here, they would go to South America and other places where their season was just starting. And they couldn't figure out why they had all these chronic injuries all the time. I'm like, because you're in an endless summer.
Summer, right.
You're not taking time off. I think the same is true with just our general exercise routines for those that are regular exercises or avid exercises or exercise addicts. They're the ones that need it the most. But I watch people just pushing themselves constantly and trying to do exercise routines that are based on what's written on a piece of paper, but never really checking in with their body and saying, do I even have the energy to do this today? And I found 1,000 times over that a lot of people's injuries come when they're pushing themselves either emotionally or mentally or physically at work or in the gym or in sports training when they're really tired and they really need to take some time to rest. One of the problems, I call it externalizing the self, when people have been so conditioned by our culture and the way we relate to only thinking of themselves as what they do or how much they can lift or how fast they can run or how much money they make or what car they drive or what job they have or how much work they can do. And look at me, but the problem is that once you get a situation like you had and your daughter had, and you have to be pushed back into yourself, you can go into a very significant crisis of self. I've had many professional athletes that got career-ending injuries, and they went through a major crisis of self, like they just didn't know who they were anymore. They became very insecure. They were very scared. It can be very problematic in marriages because there's a real catharsis they can't contain themselves. So all this fear comes out as projection and anger. And I've watched many of them medicate that with marijuana and then suffer tremendously because of the fact that the marijuana clogs up a lot of the docking sites on the cell for other hormones, and then they can't regulate their emotions anymore. And next thing you know, they're throwing temper tantrums and going from anxiety to depression. These kinds of awarenesses and practices are important because the same seasonal cycle is alive in every 24-hour day. But look how many people have lights on all night, or up till 12, 1, 2 in the morning, watching TV, working on computers, and it burns them out. And then they end up running after all sorts of pills and biohacking devices. And even people that go to Tai Chi and Qigong, I've watched them do the same thing to themselves, except they think that because they're doing some Tai Chi and Qigong, that they're somehow counterbalancing that. But Tai Chi and Qigong should not be used to medicate a dysfunctional lifestyle.
Right. Right. The pause is so valuable, right? And in our culture, we just steamroll right over it in so many ways. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right that this practice is a practice that helps remind us about the pause in the greater arc of the year. But these patterns, there's the shorter, like you're saying, the 24-hour day, right? How many of us remember to stop and pause? And really, it's about listening, right? Being able to pause and listen to what's needed. Do I need to rest, or is it okay for me to plow ahead right now? And that's a big part of the Holy Nights practice, is that ability to pause and listen.
Yes, and you're bringing up another thought. When we met, I talked to you about how I correlate the Om cycle in my Spirit Gym training program and show that Om means ah, I awaken, which is springtime. Oo, I'm dreaming. Summertime, high action phase. Fall, I'm falling asleep, which is also springtime, childhood. Adulthood, active, most productive years. Harvest, elderly, coming to the end of your life. And then the underscore of Om is dead stop, winter, end of cycle, recreation, redreaming is what I call it, redreaming time. But what I wanted to bring up here is that, and I'm sure you've seen this, I suspect, because I'm constantly analyzing people's breathing patterns and to see if they can breathe right, and checking their breathing rate to see how sympathetically overstimulated they are, and if they have traumas in the way or whatever, because if they don't ventilate right, they got problems at a very core level.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think of the 4 seasons I've just described in correlation with Om, you have inhalation, which is spring, activation, oxygen excites. Then you've got a pause at the top, which is summer, because now the activity of the oxygen is that you just took in is now active in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the exhalation phase, which is fall, the release. And if you think of when you throw a ball, you exhale. When you push something heavy, you exhale. So you're expressing yourself. And then there's a natural pause before you inhale again.
Mm-hmm.
So when I watch a person breathe, I'm always looking to see, is there an inhalation? Is there a pause before they breathe in again? Is the exhalation natural and relaxed? And is there a pause before they breathe in again? But usually what you find is they're breathing kind of like a hummingbird or a scared person. And so I see that they're at the very core level, they're out of time with these natural cycles, which show up all the way to our breathing, to every chemical reaction in our body. It's all there. Have you ever noticed, for example, that people that are having this sort of winter deficit don't breathe very well?
That makes perfect sense to me. I don't know that I've honestly ever tuned into it or paid attention, but I also love the way that you break down the Om sound. To me, again, it just speaks to how we see this same pulse, right? These same cyclical patterns. We can see, just like you're saying, we can see them in our breath. We can see them in the longer arc of the year. We can see them in a 24-hour day. It's something to pay attention to because it's everywhere.
It's true. I learned that first from Joseph Campbell, but then I looked it up in Hindu scriptures, and sure enough, it's very well explained in various Hindu scriptures. We're talking about very important archetypal patterns. If you don't fit into the pattern, what it means in simple language is you're creating stress for yourself. It's almost like you're swimming against the flow of life.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think in so many ways, our culture is doing precisely that, right? We're just not even aware of these cosmic patterns and energetic patterns and patterns of nature that we are part of, we are immersed in, and we're just tuned
Frenetic.
out. We just don't have a clue. We're just not paying attention at all.
Well, that's why we're here.
That's why we're here. Yes.
Awaken people.
And the Holy Nights is this really sweet, sweet practice that can be whatever you want to make it. It can be really deep and profound. You could go, bury yourself in a cave for 13 days or it can be just a really playful, delightful thing that you do, with your family. And yet, because it is tuning us into these patterns in a very sneaky way, it is so powerful. And it just really snuck up on me over the years. I learned this practice from my Qigong teacher. That said, it is not a Qigong practice. It's Steiner influenced or inspired practice that she sort of took and simplified and made it very easy and accessible for just about anybody to incorporate into their life. It's non-denominational. And yet I can honestly say after 6 or so years of teaching yoga, 16 years of practicing and teaching Qigong, all the deep diving with struggling with our health and everything else, this practice, more than any other practice, has most profoundly affected the way that I walk through my daily life. It's just huge.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for learning and growing with me and joining me on my podcast. A quick question for you. Do you know if you're getting enough magnesium? Because 4 out of 5 Americans aren't, and that's pretty much true worldwide. And that's a big problem because magnesium is involved in more than 600 biochemical reactions in your body. Today, I want to talk to you about the most common signs to look for that could indicate that you're magnesium deficient. Listen carefully to the end because there's a special offer happening, and this could be exactly what you need. So here we go on some of the common symptoms that indicate you might be magnesium deficient. Are you irritable or anxious? If you're not sure, ask your partner. Do you struggle with insomnia? Do you experience muscle cramps or twitches? Do you have high blood pressure? Are you constipated? Do you have a hard time falling asleep or getting a restful sleep? Do you feel more stressed than others that seem to be in the same or similar situations? Do you feel moody and wish your emotions were more stable? Do you feel you lack mental alertness? Do you feel you're at risk for osteoporosis and desire to build stronger bones? There are dozens of symptoms of magnesium deficiency, so these are just a few of the most common ones. Now, here's what most people don't know. Taking just any magnesium supplement won't solve your problem because most supplements use the cheapest kinds that your body simply can't absorb. That's why I personally recommend Magnesium Breakthrough. It's the only full-spectrum magnesium supplement with 7 unique forms of magnesium that your body can actually use and absorb. All Bioptimizer supplements are the best of the options available, or I wouldn't be offering them to you. I don't offer anything on my podcast that my family and I don't use ourselves. Bioptimizers is so committed to offering you the best quality products that really work that if you are not satisfied, you can get a full refund, no questions asked. In fact, they are so confident they offer a 365-day money-back guarantee.
And right now, for the entire month of November, Bioptimizers, the makers of Magnesium Breakthrough, are having a month-long Black Friday deal on all their products, and there are free gifts with your purchase. You can save 10% on all your products and up to 25% on special bundles, plus access up to $100 in free gifts with your purchase. This is the best time to stock up and take advantage of all the free extras you're going to get. You can only get this exclusive deal through the special link for Paul's listeners. So shop all month long at bioptimizers.com/living4D and use the code PAUL10 at checkout for your discounts and free gifts. That's bioptimizers.com/living4D and the code is PAUL10.
You know, the other thing is having looked through it and looked through the guidebook and seen the cards. I think it's got a beautiful application because, you know, a lot of people will talk themselves out of the commitment to living in the seasons and the harmonies, but some people just have to have a visit from the pain teacher
Right.
to go, oh God, Paul, Chek, and Lara were telling me the truth 2 years ago when I listened to that damn podcast. I should have just listened, but what I see that you've done is very beautiful. And that is that someone could use this really just like an oracle deck. Like each day I'm going to let my soul choose a card.
Absolutely.
The system, if you want to call it your system, the spirit of the 13 Holy Nights Oracle will probably keep talking to you, and
Yes.
say, hey, you need to pay attention. Maybe the owl is talking to you, or this amethyst, or, I have a sense that your spirit and your wisdom is actually alive in that deck. And no matter how they use it, even if it's just for fun, there's going to be whispering all the time.
It's really true. And, I focus so much on the practice itself, and I hardly ever speak to the actual writing in, the lessons that have come from the animal and herb and crystal spirits. But there's a lot packed into that oracle deck. And I can say that I surprised myself, because it was sort of an accident that I ended up writing it. Really, I just loved this practice. It so deeply affected me. It was so beautiful. I learned it the year my daughter was born, and she's always done the practice with me. And it's been such an incredible thing to share with her. And so I just wanted to shout it from the rooftops. This practice is so great. Everybody needs to learn this and do it. And my friends would keep asking me questions and want more clarity. And one girlfriend of mine one year said, will you just make us a calendar? Because we all really want to do this with you, but we need a little more guidance. And I thought, well, that sounds like a fun little side project. And then, 4 years later, I'm ordering 5,000 oracle decks from a print house. And he's like, what happened? But I surprised myself with how much I had learned and how much I had to say after a 20 plus year journey of healing and everything else that we've already talked about.
Well, that's the growth of the fruit in you. It's having created many products and written many books myself. There's a real legitimate gestation process. And just like it takes a child 9 months to gestate in the womb, this is a 4-year gestation process. So, it takes time for the baby to develop its eyes, its ears, its heart, its spirit, and then it comes out at the right time. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is what I'm going to ask you next. Your oracle deck includes wisdom offered by spirit animals, herbs, minerals, and gemstones. In the introduction to your guidebook, you mentioned that you connected deeply with these spirits. Though I personally work with these spirits of nature myself, and it is a natural practice for me, many people cannot comprehend how we could possibly connect with the spirits of animals, plants, and stones. And just hearing such things often turns people off. This is often the very supportive wisdom and support that's needed the most by those very people. So can you share your conception of what these spirit beings are, how it is that they communicate, at least to you, and what their sense of the situation humanity and the world is in today, and why you feel their message is so important that you've included them in your oracle deck? What are they? How do you communicate with them? And what's their thoughts or feelings about humans in the world? And if they have a message that you could encapsulate, what is it?
Yeah, well, I would say that each animal, plant, mineral, they all have an energetic counterpart, maybe you would say, or soul, an energetic soul. And so for me, in process of writing this oracle deck and tuning in to each one of those energetic beings, it's just a meditative process. It's about getting quiet and still enough that you can receive that communication. And that might come in the form of a psychic knowing. And sometimes, this is my favorite, it actually shows up in a real live event.
Yeah.
And so what came to mind when you were, asking these questions, I'll give an example. When I was writing the oracle deck, I had decided that the next animal that I was going to write about was peacock. And so I would decide which animal, herb, or mineral I was going to work with. And then there would be a period of just letting that sit, getting quiet, waiting for information or a direction to show up for me to take with the writing. And so I, okay, peacock, you're up. And
time to talk.
Time to talk. And literally the day after I decided that peacock was going to be the next animal that I wrote about, I'm driving down a back road with my daughter, just an area that we liked to go drive around because it's a beautiful country road. And we're driving and we pass by this yard with literally like 30 peafowl. in the front yard. I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden there's 30 peacocks showing up in my, and so my daughter, she was young at the time, she was maybe 10, 9 even, and so of course she wanted to stop, and oh mom, can we stop and see the peacocks? And I'm sort of internally chuckling, going okay. And we stopped and we pulled over, and we're just admiring through the fence these peacocks, and lo and behold, the owner of the home walks out and says, oh, would you like to come into the yard? And she welcomes us into the yard. We're surrounded by peacocks and peafowl, the male and the female birds. And she just starts conversing with us. And she ended up telling me that her mother had died a very untimely death, younger than expected. And that was precisely when the peacocks came into her life. And she showed me how each crown feather on the peacock has the colors of the rainbow and or the chakras, right? Or the cauldrons, as we call them in Qigong. And so for her, it was really a message that there is a greater design here going on. And, and I'm just sitting here. I was going for a nice drive with my daughter on a sunny afternoon, and all of a sudden I'm surrounded by peacocks and this wisdom from this beautiful woman who is sharing with me. I hadn't asked her to share. She's just suddenly telling me her story. And the wisdom doesn't always just come in an internal psychic download. Sometimes it actually shows up in an event in your real life. And then I think the more...
That's what Jung calls a synchronicity.
Yes. And the more we witness and experience those synchronicities, the more we believe there is a greater design or something going on here that is more than what meets the eye. And the more we believe, the more it happens. And so it feeds upon itself. So that's just one example.
What do you think the spirits are? Like if one's connecting to the spirit of a given animal, say you're meditating on the peacock, and whatever way you use to connect to it, and then you begin getting communication, how would you describe what's happening to somebody?
I feel like, especially with the animals, but I know it's true for the plants and the minerals as well, I feel that the animals sort of hold one slice of what we can experience as humans. And in particular, like I said, especially the animals, they sort of each have a very forward personality or characteristic that mirrors back to us some part of our human experience, but it's just one slice of the pie. That's the part of that animal soul, so to speak, that I would be meditating on or communicating with, is what is the greater soul of this animal or this species or this mineral or this plant have to offer me, like a greater field or an archetype almost. Another example of that would be when that concept first became tangible for me was way back when I think I was 24 years old. I got bit by a rattlesnake.
Oh my goodness.
Baby rattlesnake. And
you've had it tough, girl.
It's quite an initiation. Yeah.
You're getting shamanic initiations left, right, and center here.
Yeah, they weren't going to let me get away. So,
no.
So I got bit by a baby rattlesnake, went through that whole experience. That makes for an interesting story. But I came through the other side, and I went into some deep meditations with snake, where I was just really trying to feel into that animal soul and what it wanted to communicate with me and what was the gift in this experience. If you ever draw the snake card in my oracle deck, you will find that the wisdom in that writing was very personal and very hard-won wisdom for me. What I recognized through that process is that sort of every animal have these very human-like characteristics that they can sort of, again, just reflect back to us, that remind us of something that we are capable of or something that we have inside of us. It's sort of like this playful, I think, little mirror that we can, dance back and forth with the animals and the plants and the minerals and share in that way.
Yeah. If God is God, and I define God as that for which there is no other, God is the only being that can create and sustain itself. That means everything in existence has to be God.
Yeah.
And therefore, each animal and each plant and each gem is really the crystallization of God consciousness in a unique expression of itself that only that form can carry.
There you go. You just said it so poetically and so succinctly what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, because I've worked with these things. I practice modern shamanism and do a lot of healing work. And my wife Angie's a highly trained shaman, so this is kind of like family stuff for us. We're drumming and rattling with the kids and singing, and we've so externalized ourselves from spirit and from our ancestry and from the fact that our genes, what they call junk DNA, I believe is the evolutionary record of all the species that we have been in order to evolve to be the tip of the sword on this planet as human beings. And so I feel that right inside of us, we already have the decoding system. So if you want to talk to a fir tree, the tree genes are already in you. And so you're just connecting through that level of consciousness. And the DNA is a cosmic antenna system with a vast capacity. And the DNA in our bodies are full of water, which carries psychic energy and imagery and is the mass connector. And it's what gives spirit the ability to feel. And so I really think that as mysterious as it is for a lot of people, if you really say, well, who am I really? And what am I really? And what does it take to make a human being? Well, you find out everything's involved. The earth is really a womb for the creation of life, all of which is interdependent. The frog needs the pond needs the frog, the bird needs the sky needs the bird. Everything's in this intimate relationship with itself. But when human beings become so materialistic that they actually just see everything as objects that are robots that run around, biological robots like the B.F. Skinner kind of behavioral psychology model, which is the World Economic Forum, unfortunately, people like you and I sound like crazy people. But when you really connect into what relationships have to be in place for me to actually exist, where's my food coming from? Where's my water coming from? Where's my breath coming from? What relationships in nature have to be held together in order for those things to exist or to be healthy? For me, it's like I'm just talking to the owl of myself or the tree of myself or the crystal of myself. Even though I've been doing this for most of my life, I'm always just filled with joy and awe that I can actually so easily communicate with these beings. And what I love about them is they never tell lies. They never tell you half truths. They never try to create illusions. They're always completely honest. And paradoxically, they all know the fundamental reality of the fact that we are interconnected, and they're not confused at all.
Yes.
So when I saw that in your deck, I'm like, okay, good. She's actually alive and conscious, this lady. It'd be nice to talk to her.
Yeah, we are absolutely a part of nature, capital N, right? Nature is a part of us. I think that is one of the most important things that we need to remember at this point in history is the interconnectedness that you're speaking of. Because if we don't remember that this is this spontaneous divine creation that is nature with a capital N, then we're moving towards an harmonic reality where we allow technology to rule over nature. Yeah.
Which won't work.
Which won't work. Yeah, agreed.
The handwriting's on the wall, boys and girls. Aramon is not a good gardener, period.
No. Yeah.
And Lucifer wants to get you out of the garden so you'll worship him as God. So you might as well stick with the Christ concept, which means it's the same as the Tao. It's the heart. It's the connection, the love of the beauty of it all.
It's the love
together. And thank God Steiner, left us so much wisdom so we could wake up together.
Yeah, that's essentially my guiding principle these days is just this very simple phrase that I ask myself, especially when I'm screwing up. How can I love better? That's it. That came to me through a really profound experience, a conversation with a friend, a very dear friend who had died the day before. And I was able to talk to him the following day. He had tripped into schizophrenia in his early 20s. His mother and my mother are best friends. So I grew up with him like a brother. So very dear friend. His life was a wild ride from age 23 on, in and out of facilities, in and out of jail, often on the streets, often on really intense, antipsychotic drugs, often on street drugs, just wild roller coaster of a life. And so when he passed away, I went for my sunrise walk the following morning, and I could just feel him so intensely right over my right shoulder, which I later read is often where people experience their loved ones and deceased souls.
Yes.
But he was right there there's no other way to say it other than it was just so Josh. Like he was just hanging right there with me and I could feel his light. And I had that knee-jerk moment or I said to him, like, how could I have been a better friend? Like maybe we could have come let you live in our shed or, none of these things would have worked out because he would have violent episodes. But I had that moment where I thought, God, how could I have done better? And the question that ultimately landed with me was, how could I have loved you better, Josh? And his immediate response and reflection back to me was, you loved me perfectly, but apply that question to your life right now. And wow, that was so beautiful and just this massive epiphany. And so I thought, okay. I thought, well, how can I love my mom better? And I thought, well, she drives me absolutely batshit crazy, but once a week I can say, yes, Mom, we can go out to breakfast,
Yeah.
And that would be loving her better. And she now has dementia and I caretake her, but anyhow, at the time. So then the next question or the next person was my brother. And it was like, well, how can you love your brother better? And I thought, well, we literally come from different planets, but once a day, I can give him 5 minutes of my attention, like really true attention. And he's disabled and also lives here with me. So, so 5 minutes of giving him just my really pure attention, that would be loving my brother better. The next person in line was actually my husband at the time. How can you love your husband better? And the answer was so clear and so honestly and truly grounded in a place of love. And it was like getting smacked upside the head with a 2x4. And the answer was, let him go, ask for divorce.
Yeah. Sometimes our soul contracts come to an end and
right.
We don't realize we're stopping that person from meeting the person that is the right person. And
or just from developing in any way, maybe not even about finding another person, but just continuing to develop on their highest path. Right.
Yeah, on the path that suits their needs,
Right. And sometimes that involves letting go. So that question ever since that day, which was so profound for me, has been my guiding light, guiding philosophy.
Hi, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. I thought I'd take a minute to sing you a little song. Dr. Quiet, she is yin. Know how she loves to bring energy in. She teaches you how to rest so your energy is always at its best. Hey! And I want to tell you a little secret. You know how I support Dr. Quiet? I use Organifi Gold, and it does some magic to help you sleep deeper and restore better so you can get up and be a freedom fighter first thing in the morning and all through the day. And I got Drew Canoli, who created the product right here, right now, to tell us why it works so well. Drew, what's so unique about Organifi Gold except the fact that my kids won't stop asking for it?
I love this song.
Thank you.
And I think if we were DJing this, we would do Reishi. Because Reishi, full spectrum, 8-to-1, beta glucans, knock you out. The queen of mushrooms. Reishi is one of the most powerful things we can put in our body, especially at night. Helps restore, revitalize. Great for the liver.
Yes.
So while we sleep, not only are we restoring and repairing the cells, but we're detoxing in the most effective way possible.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to taste bad. In fact, it could be something you crave.
Yeah.
And that's Organifi Gold. It tastes like autumn had a baby with a marshmallow. Every time I have it, it just knocks me out. I've literally tracked it with my Whoop, my Oura Ring, and it adds another hour to an hour and a half of deep sleep.
That's great.
REM and deep every single night.
You know what's also really cool? Reishi is a wise man. It's not only the name of a mushroom, but a Reishi is a wise man.
Oh, true story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
It's absolutely true. I'm not pulling your leg.
And how much wisdom have you and I gained from night school?
A lot of wisdom.
Yep.
Yes, and you gain a lot when you can't sleep. You go, what am I doing wrong? And how do I get it fixed up? So, hey, one time when I was visiting you at your house, you made me a Organifi Gold as a hot tea, and I'd never realized you could make it hot.
It's the best way.
And I was like blown away. I'm like, wow, this is incredibly good. It tastes like dessert.
Mm-hmm.
But unlike most sweet things, if you take sweet stuff at night, you can't sleep very well, and it jacks you up. But this stuff was just so relaxing and so amazing. I was like, wow, this is incredible.
And I know you're allergic to coconut.
Yeah.
Right? So, but what I like to do, and this is when I'm being bad, you see, there's a much bigger cannoli than the cannoli you see today. I would eat ice cream and all kinds of comfort food because I'm from Michigan.
Uh-huh.
But one thing that put my cravings in check, I take a little Cocoa Whip.
Yeah.
I put it on top of this
that's
golden
nice.
tea.
Okay.
It is the best drink at night you could ever have. It's amazing.
Yeah. I'm intolerant. I'm not allergic, so I did
That's what
try
it
it.
is.
It just makes me feel stressed, but I found that, if I don't overdo it, I'm good to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really excited to have everybody try Organifi Gold, because we all need to sleep deep and pay attention to what our soul tells us while we dream, so we can work together to make this world a beautiful place for everybody and get our freedom back and get rid of the toxins in the government and other things we need to do.
And now, for a limited time, Organifi Gold Pumpkin Spice is back. All the goodness of regular Organifi Gold with the flavors of fall: pumpkin, cinnamon, nutmeg, and allspice. Go to Organifi.com/Chek20 and use the code Chek20 to get 20% off your order of Organifi Gold Pumpkin Spice. That's Organifi.com/Chek20 and the code is CHEK20 to get 20% off your order. Sleep well.
How has the 13 Holy Nights practice affected you personally, and how has it affected the people you've taught it to?
Yeah. For me personally, I already mentioned it's been the most profound practice that I've learned. The reason for that, there's two reasons. One, it is a 13-day practice. So this is not your 15 or 20-minute morning meditation, or maybe even your 1 hour or your 2 hour, practice or meditation. This is 13 days of having, 24-hour periods. There's no break. It's 13 days straight of having this extra motivation, because we are laying down the blueprint for our coming year. So we're extra motivated to pay attention, to tune in, to look for clues and cues, and to just really to listen for, or to lean into, or to pay attention to this conversation that we are always having with the divine, whether we know it or not. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Totally.
so it's because we know, this 13-day window is going to be reflected in my entire year to come. I better really wake up and pay attention to what's going on in my mind and my heart and my body and my environment. So it's 13 days of learning to walk more awake to that conversation, more aware of this partner dance that we're always a part of, whether we're realizing it or not. That part of it was huge for me. And then the second piece is that throughout the year, you are witnessing this irreplaceable guidance, wisdom, synchronicity tumble out of the journal, the blueprint that you created, right? And watching how it lines up month after month with the way that your life is unfolding. And as I previously mentioned, the more we witness those synchronicities, the more we strengthen our belief in the unseen world of energy and spirit. And so it is a process of, one, learning to walk through your whole day, every day, awake, more aware, more tuned in. And then also it's a process of strengthening that muscle, or concretizing your faith in the divine and our connection to that something greater, whatever or whoever that is for you. Again, non-denominational.
Yeah, that's great. How has it affected the people you've taught it to?
Yeah, I have gotten, so much beautiful feedback multiple times, that I have been brought to tears by the beautiful feedback that I've received. People who are doing this with their children and just finding the incredible richness of the experience together in so many ways. There was one woman who, she said, when I was a little girl at Christmas time, I could look up at the night sky and I could feel the magic. She said, yeah, the Christmas tree was fun and I liked the candy canes and the presents, but I remember looking up at the sky and being able to literally, tangibly feel the magic. And she said, somewhere along the way as an adult, I lost that. And she said, this practice brought that back for me. So
that's amazing.
That was a beautiful feedback that I got. I'm constantly having people write in with synchronicities that have unfolded for them, and they're just laugh out loud, goosebump inducing, flabbergasting moments of, you'll never believe what happened. I wrote this in my journal and then this unfolded later in the year. Or people really connecting with the writings as well. I had women actually tattoo dandelion on her shoulder because she so resonated with the writing. That's about, I think, the greatest compliment that an author can get. Just lots of really positive feedback. And it's exciting because people are connecting with it, they're enjoying it, and it is giving them something other than that hyper commercialized bonanza to tap into during the holidays.
How long ago did you publish the Oracle deck? It's got a new feel to me.
Oh, I actually published it. I self-published, I think 5 seasons ago, 4 or 5. I've sort of lost count. I'm sure I could figure it out. This next season, so this will be the last season that I'm actually distributing the Oracle deck, my original self-published version on my own. And then next season, I have some wonderful publishers, Beyond Words Publishing. They're the same folks who published the movie The Secret, if you remember that, and the movie Heal by Kelly Gores. They also did that as well. So they're fabulous, and they're picking it up. And hopefully we're going to be able to offer it to a much wider audience.
So is the best place to get it right now on your website?
Right now, that's the only place to get it. I'm not even on Amazon. I hardly have it in stores. It's really just, you got to come straight to me.
Okay, and tell us the website again, just to make sure people can get it if they want to.
There's 2 ways to get to the same website. It's either larajday.com or 13holynightsoracle.com. So the number 13 and then holy nights, plural, oracle.com. That will probably be going away. My publisher is renaming it the 13 Sacred Nights, which took me a minute to get used to. It's sort of like renaming your old dog. But I see the wisdom in that because it's a word that feels a little bit broader. The word holy, I actually had some feedback from Jewish folks who didn't pick it up because they thought it was a Christmas thing because the word holy was in there. They associate that with, oh, holy night and, the Holy Bible and whatnot. So I think it's wise to change it to the Sacred Nights.
Well, it seems to me like from what we've talked about, it's really something for everybody, from kids to be done with parents. I mean, I know my kids are 5 and 8, and I know they would love just pulling cards out of the deck. My son Mana quite often comes over and says, "Dad, I want to do tarot." So I give him a deck and we do his draw for the day. And then he asks me, well, what does it mean? And I tell him, and he really loves it. So who would you say the practice is for?
Yeah, I would say the practice is for anybody who is looking for an alternative to the over-commercialized holiday season. Anybody who has an inkling that there's got to be something more than this going on. And that might just look like an individual. I find especially folks who have seasonal affective disorder really connect with this practice and are really grateful for something to grab onto during the season of darkness. But really, anybody who's looking for an alternative to the craziness that has become the holidays. And kids do love it. I've gotten lots of responses from families that do it with their kids. It wasn't necessarily geared towards children originally. It's a Steiner practice, Steiner-inspired practice. But they hop right on board because of the container of the cards. And like you're saying, it's so fun for your son to draw the card, and it's sort of magical. My daughter and I do 13 days of only candlelight every holy night, and so we make sure we get our candles and we don't turn any of the lights on for the whole 13 days, and we draw our oracle cards each night, and it's just a really sweet time.
Yeah, that's really good. We've talked about it a fair bit. I'm sure people are wondering, what the hell is this practice?
Right.
So
let me give
maybe why don't you describe what the practice is and maybe some about how you go about doing it?
Yes, absolutely. So the nuts and bolts of the practice, this is the way it works. It is 13 days, and each day is really a 24-hour period. So each 24-hour period corresponds to a month in the coming year, with the exception of the first night, which corresponds to the entire year to come. So during these 13 days, you're doing 2 things. First, you are receiving. You're receiving guidance, wisdom, download, right? Well, how do I do that? Basically, you are just paying attention. So you're walking through your life more mindfully, and you're writing everything down in a journal. And that can look like, people always contact me and say, what do I write in my journal? Anything and everything. It can be external events that happened. The song came on the radio, so-and-so called me. I got in an argument with my partner, whatever it is, you write it all down. It might be internal dialogue, things that are on your mind, meditations that you're having internally. But basically, you're just being mindful and writing everything down. And that is really the receive bit. You're receiving just all this information. And it might seem completely random, but it will blow your mind how it later corresponds to the reality that unfolds down the road. So that's receive. And part of that receive is drawing the oracle cards each night, right? So each night you're drawing an oracle card that is going to be your guide for that corresponding period of time in the coming year. So the first night of the practice is technically the solstice, right? The longest, darkest night of the year. This is a solstice season practice. From the 21st through to the first 3 days through to the 24th, you have those initial 3 days to prepare. So you're just thinking, well, what do I want to bring to this time? Do I need to get candles for candlelight? You know, what are the tools and can I get some of the busy work out of the way? Do I need to go to the store and get a new meditation cushion or order a yoga mat so that's the first 3 days. And then for the following 13 days, this is the only tricky part. The first Holy Night actually falls at sundown on December 24th and then carries through until sundown on December 25th. So that 24-hour period, sundown to sundown, is the first Holy Night. Okay. And that, again, that first 24-hour period is a reflection, an imprint, a foreshadowing of the entire year to come. So you're doing your receive bit. You're writing everything down in your journal. You're just being mindful. You're more aware. You're writing everything down. I carry my journal with me throughout the 13 days. I don't stop my life and hang out at home writing in a journal. I just take my journal with me everywhere I go and sketch things down. It's not pretty. It's not organized. It's just all thrown in there. And then the second part is it's co-creation, right? What do we want for the coming cycle of seasons? This is a co-creative dance. So we're receiving and we're also planting our dream seeds in the fertile soil of the darkness. And here comes that cycle that you've been talking about, Paul, is that your inspirations, your fertile seeds of inspiration will then bloom and you sprout in the spring, right? And fully expand in the summertime. We're living our dream. Everything is fully expanded. And then in the fall, things start to draw back in again. You're maybe thinking about, oh, that went well and that didn't go so well. What do I want to throw on the compost pile? What do I want to keep for the next cycle before diving back in to another cycle come winter again, right?
Right.
So those are the two pieces that we're receiving, and then we're also planting our dream seeds. So if you want to meditate more, make sure you meditate during those 13 nights. If you want to, whatever it is, garden more, make sure you tip your hat somehow to that during the 13 nights. If you live in a state where you can't garden in December or January, that's okay. Maybe flip through some seed catalogs during that time or start to plan the gardening that you're going to do come gardening season, right? Or
spend more time with your plants and trees in your house.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or if you want a certain person in your life, make sure that you reach out to them in some way during that 13-day window so that you're actually creating a legitimate physical, energetic imprint for what's to come the coming year. The only thing that I say to people is a lot of times people get really hung up on, okay, so the first night corresponds to the entire year to come. Sundown the 25th to sundown the 26th represents January. Sundown the 26th to sundown the 27th represents February. Sundown, on and on, right? Down through the calendar months. And it's all in the Oracle deck, all the dates and everything. And it's on my website as well, a shortened version. So people will sometimes get a little bit hung up on like, well, okay, we're going to build a house this year and we're going to start building in July. So does that mean that on the 8th Holy Night, I should be looking at the plans or, and I always say, don't strangle the mystery. Like make sure that you get your imprint into that window, into that 13-day window, but don't fuss too much over being super precise about when you want certain things to happen in certain months in the coming year. Just make sure that you sort of give that intention to that magical window of time. And I swear it's like a riptide of energy that just gets swept right into your future in a really legitimately magical way.
Yeah, I think it really lends itself to the fact that we're always in a co-creative process with spirit. We're in a co-creative process with nature. We're in a co-creative process with all the people we share relationships with.
I can't believe it's November already, but that means that the biggest shopping day of the year is fast approaching, Black Friday. The Chek Institute is gearing up for not just one day, but a whole week of special deals, bundles, and discounts. And here's the great part. Paul has authorized me to offer all our Spirit Gym podcast listeners and Spirit Gym members a very special VIP gift, a $50 credit to use on any of the Chek Institute online courses and bundles on sale during Black Friday week. What's the catch, I hear you ask? Absolutely no catch. You just have to request your $50 credit before the sale starts. Go to chek.group/Black Friday 24, fill out the request form, and the Chek Institute will get you set up with your credit for Black Friday week. Plus, you can get a sneak peek of all the bargains that will be happening starting November 25th. Do this now before you forget and miss out. Go to chek.group/Black Friday 24 to get your $50 gift from Paul and the Chek Institute.
One of the things that I want to hear a little bit more about, just from my own curiosity and maybe that of others, is how can you continue the use of the deck, the oracle, the guidebook past the 13 holy nights you've described? And maybe somebody's going through a crisis in their life right now, and they really need to say, hey, somehow I keep creating a life I don't want. Could someone use the practice anytime and basically do the 13 holy nights practice because their soul is calling them to it?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a deeper twist on a question that I get often. So I'll address the often question and then the deeper twist. People often ask, can I use this deck throughout the year? Is it only for the holy nights? I love it so much. And of course, the answer is yes. Any and all of these divining tools are always to be used however the user decides, right? This is between you and your team. So whatever feels right to you. So I do have lots of people who use the Oracle deck for the holy nights and then use it as they would like throughout the rest of the year as well. The twist that you put on it was that can we use this practice of the 13 nights throughout the year? And, I've never actually thought about that. I'm not sure what it would look like, but absolutely. My first response is that if you can come up with a structure that makes sense to you and you're clear on how you're using this tool, this divining deck. If you've got, say, maybe it's a very important time coming up and you want some extra guidance, the trick is getting clear in your mind. So like, okay, I want to draw these 13 successive cards and I, would like them to reflect these 13 days coming up. So certainly you could do that. The trick would only be that you get very clear on the structure that you've created, which is perfectly fine, and what you're asking of the cards, right? Anytime that you're using a divining tool, it's really just about having a clear agreement between you and the spirits that you're working with.
Yeah, I think intention is, if God is unconditional love, then it's always pure potential. But whenever you have an intention, you put spirit into tension. That's what makes it flow. Mm. What came to my mind is, like, I work with a lot of people going through a midlife crisis or a major health crisis, or they've just come out of a divorce, or they're in the process of a divorce, or a business has failed. People that hire me don't come to me because they want to hang out and share my amazing bags of smoke. They hang out with me because they've got something really going on. So I was just thinking, how would I want to use this beautiful system you created? And I thought, well, I could take someone in a midlife crisis who, it's like a lot of people come fly to me and spend, multiple days with me. So I could take the first day and say, okay, let's just get really clear about what you want to dream into your life. You're in a transition point right now. So you could say you're in your winter solstice is upon you. We're talking about a yearly season, but the psyche can have its own great year. And there's many cycles inside a cycle. So sometimes I think each soul's got its own cycles. And we can then say, okay, let's get clear on what you want and what you don't want. That would be day one. And then let's go through the process of journaling, but let's maybe draw a card for the additional 12, whether it be months or whether it be 12 things that your soul wants you to be aware of moving forward as you look for your new partner or you dream up your new business. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that you can take the one getting clear day and then the 12. And, 12 is the symbolic number of completion. So I think that if we look at the archetype of 12, we can see that, we've got 4 groups of 3, winter, spring, summer, fall. There's a lot of ways you could use it.
Mm-hmm.
But I could tell just by looking through the deck that almost anybody, no matter how they use it, is going to get insight, intuition, guidance, and a sense of connection to something that's probably going to be meaningful in the context of what their intention is or what their need is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Are there other frequently asked questions that you get in relationship to the practice that you might want to share on?
There's a handful. One question that often comes up is, am I supposed to do this practice alone, or am I supposed to do it with other people? Again, that's a personal thing. So for me, this practice was really more of an individual practice because it is about that introspection. It's about figuring out what it feels like for my consciousness, my thoughts, my awareness to be in connection with a greater awareness. And that's a very internal process. I was really surprised, and delightfully so, that after putting this out to the world and whoever would pick it up, I had lots of groups of little Holy Nights groups that were forming around the country where people were getting together and they were drawing their cards together, whether it was on Zoom or in person, and discussing, the cards that they had chosen and the way that it was all going for them. So that was sort of a very unexpected and delightful thing to see happening. And there's no wrong way. So for me, it's always been very personal, but if you feel drawn to doing it in a group or with your family, absolutely.
I love it. I teach tarot workshops specifically for using tarot as a means of creating an archetypal language to communicate with your own soul, not so much a divining practice, but as a language and how to use the tarot deck to let your soul guide you to the information you need with questions or what's going to happen in your day or how to solve problems in your life. And I had groups popping up that would meet and discuss their cards, and it was just cool to see that happening. It's kind of like your children are having children and you watch it all grow. It's very cool.
And what a rich way for people to connect, right? And so much of our being here is connecting with each other. So
and in a meaningful way too.
In a meaningful way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question that I want to make sure that I speak to is, a lot of times people will call me in a panic and say, "Oh no, this terrible thing happened, during the Holy Nights or on the first Holy Night, oh my gosh, does that mean that my entire year is going to be a disaster?" And again, I think we always have to remember to hold the mystery lightly and to remember that it's not always word for word the way it plays out. Sometimes it is. And I've got so many great stories of things that just literally word for word manifested straight from my journal into 3D later on. But sometimes it's very metaphorical. And there may be something that, some shenanigan or some challenge that actually showed up during the Holy Nights. And there's some beautiful nugget of wisdom that came from that experience that later heads something off at the pass down the road that you then don't have to go through. So I always remind myself and anyone who I'm sharing this practice with that every single thing that you receive during the Holy Nights, or the Sacred Nights, as it will soon be called, is meant to be helpful.
Yes.
It's all meant to be helpful. None of this is a curse. And so everything that you receive, that you gather, that happens, that you write down, that, during this time is meant to be a gift. It's meant to be helpful. And if you approach it that way, it's never scary.
I think it's also important to remember that God does have a pretty wicked sense of humor.
God has a very wicked sense of humor. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, another thing too that people ask is, do I need to abandon my current traditions? Is this a replacement of Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever we do? And no, you can continue to be in the world, however, to whatever degree you desire. I know for me, over the years, it's been this slow and organic process of the usual holiday activities. They're still there. I still often go to my family Christmas Eve gathering, and my daughter loves a good Christmas tree, and we've got a really beautiful collection of magical little, ornaments, a lot of them passed down from my grandmother. But all that stuff has sort of shifted organically over the years to being on the back burner or taking a back seat. And the Sacred Nights or the Holy Nights are now center stage. And so when this season starts to approach, as it is now even, I start to get bubbly and excited inside about this opportunity to co-create. And what do I want to bring into my coming cycle of seasons? And I can't wait to to get quiet and to replenish and to dive inward and to pause, to find the pause and to reset. And that's what's now this season is about for me. And it was a gradual thing. It wasn't overnight. I learned the practice and then I threw the other stuff away. And it's still there. Like I said, I don't crawl into a cave during the 13 Holy Nights, though you could. If you wanted to go on a really intense, deep meditation in the backwoods, you could, but I don't do that. I continue to walk through the world and my life. However, it's as if I'm walking through life with a sacred little secret in my pocket. And like nobody knows, but I know. I know it's this special magical time and that there's this beautiful roadmap being created and this beautiful co-creative dance happening. And I'm sort of in this sacred, mystical state of being as I'm walking through maybe some Christmas shopping and maybe the family Christmas party. It's all still there, but it's no longer center stage.
Yeah, well, I think what I feel from just engaging you and hearing what you're sharing is a practice like this can be the difference between life happening to you and you doing life, like taking a role and midwifing with life, as opposed to just trying to just wake up every day and wondering if you're going to make it through it, or, kind of just existing without a sense of awareness that you're intentionally co-creating and intentionally gestating and manifesting what you want in your life. I mean, most people, they spend their whole life not knowing what they want and wondering why this happens or that happens. But, the analogy I give my students and my patients is, hey, if you just walk into a restaurant and when the waitress comes up and says, what would you like to eat? You say, I don't know, I'm just hungry, give me anything. Well, you got no right to bitch when she brings you, cold ham and cold potatoes and half a cup of somebody else's coffee, because that's exactly what you asked for. Just bring me anything. And that's kind of like a childish way to live. But if you, even if you don't believe in all this stuff, I think then you should be a good scientist and say, I wonder what'll happen if I just try it.
Right.
And then at least you're being fair in your own, approach to being objective about something. Most people just reject things without even giving them any attention, awareness, or a chance to see if they're real. This is why Jung said, real thinking is hard work. That's why most people judge,
right.
Because that's Oracle deck.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah. Have you ever used one? No. Well, then how do you know?
It's so funny. I had a friend, somebody responded to, I sent an order out and then I got like a response through my website. And it was from a kid who I went to college with 25 years ago or something. And he goes, my wife ordered this Oracle deck. And like, I looked at the name and I go, what the heck? Is this Lara from, UC Santa Cruz? And I laughed and I go, yeah. And he goes, she really wants me to do it, but I'm not really an Oracle deck kind of a guy. And I said, just try it. I promise you won't be allergic, And so he wrote me back after the Holy Nights and he said it was pretty cool. And yeah, I wasn't allergic,
Yeah, great. Lara, that brings us to the end of our free segment for the public, for everybody. We're going to transition now to the members section where we're going to get into the actual meaning of Christmas and a few other interesting things that I think everybody will love. Before we transition, just for the people that aren't members, which you can become a member by going to paulchek.com and signing up for the Spirit Gym podcast membership there for a very small fee that supports podcast production and supports me in supporting you. Why don't you give everybody your web address again, where to find you, what your services are, just so that people can be reminded of how to find you and find the 13 Holy Nights practice and everything involved.
Yeah. So everything is in one place on my website, which is Lara, LARAJDAY, larajday.com. You can also get to the exact same website through 13 Holy Nights Oracle.com. So the number 13 Holy Nights, plural, Oracle.com. I'm also on Instagram, Lara J. Day, and Facebook, which I don't go to often, but there as well. I do offer 5 different seasonal courses. So they align with the wood, fire, earth, metal, water system of the Chinese medical Qigong philosophy, and then in-person or remote Zoom individual sessions, which are a combination of medical Qigong or Qigong healing, and neurogenic tension and trauma releasing tremor work. So that's a whole separate podcast, but I do offer those sessions in person and via Zoom.
Yeah, very good. Well, thank you. And thank you to our sponsors for all your love and support, your amazing products. Thanks to all of you who buy anything from the sponsors. They all get their source materials from organic, free range farmers that are not poisoning the planet, but are actually working to support the regeneration of the soil and keep us healthy and the planet healthy. So you're loving yourself, you're supporting the sponsors that are making us great products, and you're supporting the earth and the farmers, and you are supporting the podcast. So thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for joining us. Don't be afraid to go get your podcast membership so you can get all the rest of the amazing stuff I get into with all our amazing guests. I will have something amazing for you next week. And Lara, thank you for this first segment, and we will continue. I'm excited to get into the rest of what we have in our outline. I'm quite interested.
Yeah, actually. I have a fun story about where our current holiday traditions actually came from.
Yes, so if you want to know that, we'll see you there. Lots of love, everybody. Oh, great spirit. It is done. It is done. It is done.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Gym with Paul Chek and today's guest, Lara J. Day. If you found value in today's show, there's more great content waiting for you in our special Spirit Gym podcast membership. When you subscribe, you'll get access to exclusive extended episodes of Spirit Gym with Paul Chek, members-only Q&A opportunities with Paul, access to the podcast members forum within the Spirit Gym community where you can interact with other passionate listeners, and the opportunity to purchase exclusive Spirit Gym merchandise. Your support helps keep the show running and allows us to bring you even better content. So if you're ready to dive deeper and unlock all these amazing extras, head over to paulchek.com/podcast and become a Spirit Gym podcast member today. You can visit Lara's websites at larajday.com or 13holynightsoracle.com. That's 13holynightsoracle.com. Connect with her on Instagram and Facebook at Lara J. Day. Lara is offering Paul's listeners 15% off the 13 Holy Nights Oracle deck using the coupon code PAUL15. Go to 13holynightsoracle.com to get your deck now and use the code PAUL15 for 15% off your purchase. For more of the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit the show notes page at paulchek.com/podcast, where you can also find details on the special offers from our premier sponsors, Bioptimizers, Organifi, Paleo Valley, and Wild Pastures, as well as links to Paul's social media, his YouTube channels, and his blog. And finally, if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and a warm review on the podcast platform of your choice. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and YouTube.